Okay, fine. So let us talk about shock waves. We'll discuss both normal shock and oblique shock. But let us take a general overview, then we'll differentiate. So this is the syllabus we have. We'll talk about normal and oblique shock. We'll talk about expansion wave, and we'll look into Huguenot relations. We'll also talk about reflection and intersection of shock wave. What is a detached shock, back reflection, shock polar, expansion theory, and moving shock in a shock tube. So this is what we have in the syllabus, and we are going to go through all these topics one by one. So before we begin, let us try to look at some questions. So first, you must ask that what is a shock, okay, and how it is formed, or more importantly, when, at what conditions we see a shock getting formed. That is something of fundamental and importance. Then what is the difference between normal and oblique shock? That is actually coming from the name itself, but I will explain in a few slides. But overall, we can say that we have a lot of general or common behavior between normal and oblique, and there are yet some differences that we'll look at in more detail. Okay, last question is, whenever you hear the term shock or whenever you see any examples or problems where shock is there, so how is the fluid velocity? Okay, when you observe shock, whether the fluid is moving slow, high, or how slow or how high, that is the question. So let us look at some examples. So these are two stereo images of similar type of objects. So which one do you see a shock here? Can you please comment? Which picture you see the shock? Top one or bottom one?
Bottom.
Okay, so which, if you want to guess, if you have, if you don't know the velocity, which velocity will you guess to be higher or lower? If is the top one is having higher velocity or the bottom one is having higher velocity? This is easy.
Bottom one, sir.
Correct. So generally for subsonic flows, we don't see any shock formation, but when you are going at supersonic speeds, so that could be either this object is moving or fluid is moving past this. So for both the cases, we get relative motion, and if your relative velocity is more than Mach 1, if your fluid is approaching or going to supersonic speeds, then we see the formation of these shocks. So generally, for most practical examples, we see oblique shock getting formed, but there are also a lot of cases where normal shock is observed. So we'll look at them one by one. So here we have agreed that this one has higher velocity. So what is the difference between subsonic flow where there is no shock and supersonic flow where there is a shock? So what you see is that Mach number is less than 1, Mach number of the free stream, and here the Mach number is more than 1. Another interesting difference is that you see that fluid streams or streamlines which are approaching the object, they start to diverge at some distance. They know that there is some object sitting here, and accordingly they adjust their paths. They take a curve from here. But for a shock, as you see, these fluids which are approaching to this object, they don't have any idea till they reach the shock. Till they reach the shock, the streamline is straight path as if nothing is there. Now once they reach shock, then they diverge at a very large angle. They suddenly change angle. So that is a typical feature what you observe in both normal. Sorry, it will be mostly oblique shock. Normal shock, it will again go straight only. Okay, so these are some general outline. Let us look at some more examples where shock is getting formed.
Excuse
So
me, sir.
yes,
Sir, generally shock produced in supersonic, not in
yes,
subsonic.
yes.
Why?
Not.
Sir, this like the stream flow, air flow, anything.
Yes,
The divergence of the stream in this Mach number greater than 1 and Mach number less than 1. And in Mach number greater than 1, this shock will produce, and this divert streamline is this type and in this type. Why this thing?
that's what we let me finish this chapter. So we'll derive the equation. We'll also discuss what happens. So
Okay,
just now I'm giving you background. I will go to that. That is what we will try to figure out.
okay,
Okay.
sir. Thank you, sir.
So we have a lot of before going to all the derivation, I wanted to show you some pictures. That is the plan. Okay, so we'll derive why it behaves like that.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so again some pictures. So you can see that we have some bluff bodies, and this is what you see. These are Schlieren images. So these are basically this visualization is done based on density gradients. So you also know that there is some change in density happening here. Okay, so now let us look at the streamlines. Okay, earlier we just look at the schematics. Now this is the streamline. This is actually I think creeping flow. So it is a very low Reynolds number, or let us say at very low speeds. So what do you see here? This region. So this fluid particle, fluid parcel, or let us say whatever atoms or molecules are there, they know that some object is sitting there, right? And then they take a diversion much before actually coming to near to the object. This is very clear in this figure. So you see, even before this, here also you see some curve is there. It is not going straight. If you look at this section, right? While if you this is a supersonic flow and this is not a streamline. These are all these two are streamlines. This is basically based on this is an interferometry based on density based visualization, but still the streamlines, if you measure, they will also behave in a similar way. It will come straight. You can see this. Let me draw it for you. So here you see there is something drastic happening on. Something interesting is there, and it is completely changing the how the fluid is behaving. Right? And you see the difference between this and this. This is the same spherical or circular object, and you see the difference in streamlines here. Right? This is what we saw in the schematic. That fluids start to diverge here, but that is not getting diverged. That is not there. Fluid is coming as if it has no information. Okay. Fluid comes to the shock and then it suddenly begins to diverge. Let me first look at some examples, then we'll explain. Same behavior here. If you see, this is coming, so I will better move up. Here, fluid doesn't care. Fluid will come up to here, then suddenly it's your shock is there. Then from that it will diverge. Again, this is not streamlines. This is interferometry image, but at least you can qualitatively make out that something drastic is happening here. Right? This is clear? Yes or no? This is a shock front. Okay, so what is happening? Now let us discuss about it. So what happens is basically when you, let us say here, when your fluid is approaching any object, or let us say if the object is moving, what happens is that some fluid particles will hit this, some fluid coming to this, it will hit, right? Once it hit, it creates some disturbance or creates some wave that will pass on this information. That will pass this information to the approaching fluid. Okay, that's why these fluids know that something is coming. Let me go from side. Similarly here, when the fluid hits it, it passes this information upstream. Okay, whatever the fluid particles are hitting it, they pass that information. That's why these the approaching particles, they diverge. Is this clear?
हेलो सर,
Yes.
सर शौक मतलब जो ऑब्जेक्ट है ओरिएंटेशन के कारण हो रहा है सर यहाँ पे।
Okay, ठीक है, forget about this. You talk about these two. Or let us say talk about these two. What is orientation have to do here? Any effect of the, okay, I agree that this is because of orientation, but there's no orientation here. These two, there's no orientation, right? Do you agree or not?
यस सर।
Okay, let us talk about these two. So what happens is that this information is getting passed to upstream fluid particles, that something is coming, go from side. That is what these particles are doing. Even this far, these particles, this streamline is bending because of that. Okay, why not? Why not in shock? Okay, so let me tell you what happens. So there is a wave which travels backwards and it tells particles to move away. That wave moves at what speed? Sonic speed. It travels at the speed of sound. So it goes back and tells other particles to move away. Now, when you have a flow is coming from supersonic speed, right? See, this fluid is coming at subsonic speed. So, if information or wave is passing through supersonic speed, which will be that velocity will be much higher than the fluid velocity, right? Here, V is less than A because Mach number is less than 1. Here, what happens? V is more than A. Understand? So, because of that, that information is not able to travel backward. The fluid which is approaching, it has no information that the object is here. It comes here and then it suddenly hits the shock. So there is a step change. Okay, there is a step change in properties that we'll see shortly. But this is how shock is getting formed. Okay. So this is how, let us have, I have written down that statement. So what happens is that fluid particles upstream of an obstacle like this, they know that something is there. There is an obstacle and they deviate from their path. This is a schematic, but we have looked at actual examples, right? So they deviate from their free stream trajectory or whatever path they are already having, they deviate from that, right? Now this information is transmitted at sonic speeds in a medium. Whatever the speed of sound is there, by that speed that information propagates backwards or in upstream direction. Now, for a supersonic flow, where your flow velocity itself is higher than sonic velocity, these reflected signals, they cannot go far because velocity of the fluid is higher than Mach number. So this information that is going back, that cannot propagate further, it just coalesces here. This is the region where we have the information, but before this region we have no information. This is same as what you see in the free stream. Okay, this coalescence forms a thin compression front. This is called shock wave. And whatever there is in the upstream, they don't have any idea. They are just coming straight, no deviation in the path, right? And a drastic change in trajectory happens at the shock front. And even thermodynamic properties change, that we'll see in few next subsequent slides. This is a very important or basic slide for shock formation. Is this clear to everyone? Or if any doubt, I can discuss again. Is this clear? Why this is behaving differently? Or you want me to repeat? Polar collector not.
No, sir, it is okay.
Yes.
Yes, so say, tell me yes. Okay, so this is clear. Now let us, then we'll move on to some definitions and derivations. So shock wave is, basically it can be defined as a compression front, okay, which across which flow properties jump. So there is a drastic change. Okay, now it is basically a compression front in a supersonic flow field, and the flow process across the front results in abrupt change. So either you can call it a jump, or you can say that there is an abrupt change in fluid properties. And this shock wave is actually quite thin. It is of the order of microns, and it is comparable to mean free path. Okay, so it is not a very large thickness, it is a very small thickness. Okay, and because of that, you see pressure at the upstream, it is very high, and suddenly after the shock, pressure or velocity, things change. So velocity changes from, let us say, supersonic to subsonic. So there's a large change, and you imagine this thickness is in microns. So the gradient will be very large. Let us say del t by del x. That will be very large, and that has that affects the flow in certain way that we are going to study. So it is a characteristic feature of a shock that we have very large gradients in temperature, pressure, and velocity. Okay, these three basically thermodynamic properties change. And till now, what we have studied, we have talked about, generally when we started the subject, we talked about isentropic flow. Okay, now inside the shock, there are actually non-equilibrium locations, equilibrium conditions and all, and this is highly irreversible. It produces a lot of entropy. So now we cannot use any of that isentropic relations. That will be wrong. So for shock, we have to consider irreversible effects. How do we do that? That we'll see. So another thing I just wanted to, yes, any question?
So in subsonic flow, when the objects come into the picture, the streamline converges. Same happens in the supersonic flow.
Sorry, your question is not clear. Please repeat.
Actually, in subsonic flow, when
Yes.
object is come under in between the streamlines
Okay.
converges. In previous slide.
This one.
No. Next. This one.
Okay.
What is actually happening in supersonic or in shock waves? I'm not getting that thing.
That we need to derive. I'm just giving you background. We'll derive those relations, and then we'll talk about those features.
In subsonic, the streamline also converge in supersonic too. So what we can see in both of them? What is the difference between them?
So the difference between that is that in subsonic flow, the fluid particles ahead of.
Sir, is there any specific term like in supersonic we have called shock? Is there any specific term in subsonic too
For what?
for converging streamlines, for denoting it? Like in supersonic we have called it shock.
Yes. See, shock is not for the converging streamlines. Shock basically tells you that before the shock front, this free stream fluid has no information that object is here. That is what one feature of shock is. That sort of thing is not there in subsonic. Flow will anyway follow similar type of, it will diverge, it will move away from that, but that is delayed here. That happens earlier on subsonic, but that divergence is delayed. The path is also very abrupt. Okay, you see a smooth change in path, right? So streamlines are basically, when streamlines converge, you see a increase in velocity, right? So that will not.
Is there any particular angle in shock waves? The convergence.
Yes, we'll come to that. See, now I'm just showing
we are not getting what is shock. We are not getting what is shock and why it is happening. The basic.
So basically, okay, so just bear with me for a few slides. I want to cover some basic definitions, and we'll derive what happens in a shock. Okay, so basically, in a crude way, I can say that you can say shock is basically shock front is a step jump in properties. That's see. Okay, let me compare this and this. So basically here you have some velocity here and after this. Okay. So velocity, your pressure or temperature will not be drastically different in these two locations. Right? When you look at the examples, so velocity, let us say here, it is definitely, when you see shock, so this free stream velocity is definitely a supersonic velocity. But once it passes through the shock, it becomes subsonic velocity, especially in case of normal shock. Okay, so velocity change is drastic. If you look at, if you plot velocity with respect to x, so let us say about this. So actually here velocity will increase. Okay, don't worry about subsonic. Let us look at supersonic. So velocity will, let us say we will have some velocity. It will suddenly drop and it will be subsonic. So this happens at the shock front. Similarly, if you have a subsonic flow, velocity will gradually change. It will increase or decrease. That will happen over some distance. But this shock front is a very thin. Generally, for theoretical derivations, we assume it is infinitely thin. It is of the order of micron. So imagine your velocity is supersonic, and in, like, let us say 10 micron, it becomes subsonic. And you think about how much strong gradients are there. That is what makes the shock different from what you see in subsonic flow. So similarly, you will have strong gradients of pressure, temperature, and velocity. That we are yet to explore. I will derive. I will write those equations, and then I will give you some definitions, and then we look at the equations, which will make you more.
Means after shock, supersonic converts to subsonic.
Yes, correct. That will not happen for a subsonic flow. You will not see such a drastic change anywhere. Any point you take velocity.
In subsonic becomes subsonic.
Subsonic.
It remains subsonic.
Yes. Even in subsonic, you will not see that here the velocity is, let us say, 100 meters per second. Here it becomes 2 meters per second. That sort of thing will not happen. Okay, but for a shock, you will see Mach 3 to Mach 0.8. That sort of change within a very small region. That's the beauty of a shock. Okay, let me derive some relations. Then it will be much more clear to you. Right now, I'm just showing you some photos just to give you background. Once we go in detailed discussion, then you will be able to identify what changes are there.
Is there any role of object, orientation, presence?
That will have
size, whatever. Is it
okay?
Is there any impact on shock?
What about this? This is a circular object. You see shock formation. You see shock formation for circular object, square object. Even if you put this is let us say aerodynamic object, but still we have shock.
Does any shape or size of object affect the shock?
That's what I'm showing you. You see one shape here, one shape, 3 shapes you have seen. For all the shapes, we have shock wave. So whenever you go beyond Mach 1, whenever you go to supersonic speeds, you are likely to get shock. Okay, so some properties will basically it only depends on the flow properties. That's what I'm saying. Let me look at those equations, then we can come back here if you have any doubts about orientation. All the orientation not affect. I'm telling you fine, but let us confirm that using equation. Okay. Only whatever is most important parameter here is what we are interested in, flow velocity. So they could be either this is stationary, fluid is moving, or fluid is stationary, this is moving. That will, okay, let us look at those examples. So, can you tell me whether this object is moving or the fluid is moving? Can anyone guess? See, it is difficult to say because we are interested in relative velocity. If the relative velocity is more than Mach 1, then we'll have same flow features. It doesn't matter whether this is moving or this is hold stationary. So we look at different examples. So for this particular case, okay, what we do is when you want to design a aeroplane or missile, so we do testing in wind tunnel. So in wind tunnel, what we do, we create smaller models. This is not a full scale, right? So we create smaller models for an aircraft or whatever object you want, and then we hold it stationary. So this is the stand. So we hold it stationary and fluid is flowing past it. Okay. In this case, if I remember correctly, this is fired. This could be there are some similar images of bullet fired from a gun. Okay. So this case object is moving. This case object is stationary. Fluid is moving. Or this case this is an image by NASA. They have done some background oriented slaying. So that is will not go into the detail of that technique. But you see a very clear signatures of shock waves. And in this case, fluid is stationary. This is taken in atmosphere. This object is moving. So whether object is moving, fluid is moving, what is the orientation, what is the angle, that will be important if you are, let us say, want to calculate drag or lift. Then that orientation will be important. But as of now, for the purpose of for relevance of what we are studying, only thing that we are concerned with is Mach number or velocity of the approaching flow. So I know that if it is more than 1, then we'll see shock formation. If it is less than 1, then there is no shock formation. That is let us start with this simplest assumption. Okay, so I'm making a statement that for shock formation, I will first, at the very basic level, I'm only concerned with the flow velocity. I don't care about what is the size, shape, or orientation of that object. It could be a large, it is a full scale, it is actual airplane, and this is a small model. But for both the conditions, we see shock formation because we have supersonic velocity here. That is all that matters. Okay. So we can also see shock formation for everything stationary. We have a blast. It is like a bomb blast or something. Some explosive is blasted. So you can see this shock is getting formed here. So these are the different configurations you see shock formation. And we can also see shock forming for a flow which is coming out from a nozzle. Okay, that is something that we are going to discuss in more detail. So you have under expanded or over expanded jet, and what types of shocks are there, how they interact with this flow field. And lastly, we can also have shock in a straight tube. This is basically a divergent tube, so the area is increasing, and we can model it like this. So let us say this is the shock, and around that shock I create a control volume, and you see that flow is coming from left to right. So Mach number, let us say I call it MA1 or M1 is more than 1, here it is less than 1. Then this velocity will be very different from this. Pressure, enthalpy, this all properties change drastically across this shock. That is the unique feature of a shock that does not have any similar behavior in subsonic flow. Subsonic flow, you will never see this type of behavior that makes this unique or different. Okay, so another thing that we will anyway discuss this in detail, but this is the difference between normal and oblique shock. Okay, so when your flow is coming basically from left to right, if your shock is perpendicular, okay, or normal to the flow direction, then it is normal shock. If it is at some angle, if it is not oblique, if it is not 90 degree or normal, it makes some angle. Let us say theta, which is not equal to 90 degree, then it is called oblique shock. That is the only difference between them, but it also creates some difference in behavior that we'll discuss in detail anyway. Okay, so these are basically some background only. Now we will go on detailed analysis. Okay, so once we finish this derivation, then I hope a lot of things what you are asking would be clear. So do people have some time? Should I extend for let us say 20 minutes or so? You don't have any class after this? Yes, do you want me to stop?
We have a class of solar energy, sir.
Okay, then fine. Then we are okay. Let me stop recording first.